Who killed JFK? That's what we're going to be talking about on today's Rainer on Leadership episode. Actually, we're not. But Ryan, was the CIA involved or not? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, I don't think so. I'm a very non-conspiratorial thing. I think it was a rogue shooter. Lee Harvey Oswald's a weird dude. Like, there's nothing there. Listen, remember that thing what happened when in Pennsylvania with Trump with the ear and getting shot and all that stuff? There's nothing there.
How could I forget?
Yeah. It's all over the news. And then they asked Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, right? Like, what's there? And you know what they both said? There's nothing there. Like, we looked at all the files. You want to make this into some grand conspiracy. It's just some weirdo dude who wanted to kill the president. That's the end of the story. Like, there's nothing. And we're going to talk more about this, but conspiratorial thinking says, no, it's got to be more involved than that. And I think a lot of times random stuff just happens. And Lee Harvey Oswald wanted to kill the president, and he did. That's the end of the story.
Well, that's really boring.
I know.
So thank you for the facts. Although I am maybe a little more prone to some conspiracy theory there than you are. Maybe there was some tie there. I don't know. But that's not really the point of today's episode. We're talking about, are religious people more prone to conspiracy theories, which I think is a better question for our audience. But before we get into that, I want to thank our sponsor, Tyndale. They have these NLT large print pew Bibles. And here's the thing. I have them in my church and I love them. And I bought all these Bibles before Tyndale was a sponsor of the show. So I am giving you this great tip because I think these things are awesome. Easy to read. And it's a large print, but it's 10.25 font. 10.25. So it's not like it's giant, but it is easier to read, especially for those who are older. And the average age of a churchgoer is right around 60 years old. So this is a good way to go. They are durable, affordable, beautifully crafted, ideal for the worship service. And it's the New Living Translation, which is what I use when I preach. So upgrade your pew Bibles today. The way that you can get them is at church-connect.com. Again, church, there is a dash there between church and connect. Church-connect.com. We've got a link in the show notes as well. Get you a bunch of these pew Bibles and then just give them away. That's what I do. And several services a year, I'll say, hey, if you need a Bible, take one. If you want to give one to a friend, take one of our pew Bibles. And we've got a line item in our budget. So these are the ones that we buy, the NLT large print pew Bibles. Fantastic choice. Absolutely love these Bibles. And we're grateful to Tyndale for sponsoring today's episode. All right, Ryan. We have this desire to make sense of chaos. Like, there's this human desire to kind of like tie up loose ends, put things together, connect the dots, whatever metaphor you want to use there. And so we create these theories to help us do that. So when things are random, now I still believe in the sovereignty of God, just in case you're wondering, but when things seem random in this world, we kind of go down this road. So help me understand why, this idea of conspiracy theories and then the connection points to religion. So kind of introduce the topic a little bit here.
Yeah. So people, like, especially on the left, want to believe, by the left, I mean like secular left, want to believe that religious people are just gullible, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, if you believe that a guy died and then came back to life and then ascended into heaven, there's a plausibility structure that's different than like an atheist, rationalist, natural, it doesn't fit. Those worldviews are incompatible with each other. And so what an atheist will posit is that because a Christian is opening themselves up to the irrationality of miracles, let's say, that they're also opening themselves up to the irrationality of conspiracy theories. Because at the end of the day, a lot of conspiracy theories there's like a nugget of something in the middle of that, but it's wrapped in this like nonsense conspiratorial mindset thing. And I think a lot of like a big criticism of religious people is they're just unsophisticated or dumb or whatever word you want to use there. And so because you believe in this one thing, you have to be more open to believing in these other things. And again, like when I hear these ideas, I'm like, well, I got to test that, right? Like, is that true, or is that you want it to be true? Is it actually true? Is there some nuance to it? And that's actually where the post came from. This really cool survey called the Survey of American Fears ask about a whole bunch of conspiracy theories and then ask a whole bunch of religion questions. And so I looked at the data and thought, well, this is a perfect way to test this idea if religious people are more open to conspiratorial thinking than non-religious people.
So this was you did a correlation.
Yeah, I did a correlation. That's what, like, I don't do causality. Causality is really hard, by the way, not to go down the rabbit hole of like methods too much, but like, does this cause this is actually insanely hard to figure out. What you can say is religious people tend to have a higher conspiratorial thinking or lower. Like, you can, now the question of why is almost impossible to figure out, because it's like, does the thing that make you more conspiratorial also make you more religious? Or does religion itself make you more conspiratorial? Or does being more conspiratorial make you more religious? Like, the causal arrow there can go like 50 different ways. And a lot of what I do is just like say, hey, here's this cool thing I found in the data. You go figure out what that means. Like, I'm not a big why guy. I can tell you what like crazy. That's my entire job, is tell you what. Trying to figure out why is a lot harder.
So walk us through the what. Let's answer the question. Are religious people more prone to conspiracy theories?
Well, first off, let me say this. Guess what the conspiracy that most people agree with is? It's the one you just mentioned at the top, JFK. Over half of Americans think that the government's concealing what it knows about JFK.
That's because the government is concealing what they know about JFK.
That was 60 years ago. Like, what do they cover? Everyone there's dead. Like, literally everyone involved is dead now.
So let me into a little family history here.
Okay.
We used to hear rumors about Richard Rayner and some of his involvement of World War II, in particular his connection to the OSS, which would later become the CIA.
Yeah.
We'd heard all these stories and stuff, and then guess what just came out the last couple of years is declassified documents about my uncle. I think he's my great uncle, and what he did. And there are still other stories and other things that he did as part of the precursor to the CIA that I know that I've heard rumors through my family that will never be released. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, Ryan, sometimes the government keeps things from us and they shouldn't do that.
Well, half of Americans believe the government's concealing what it knows about the 9/11 attacks.
That's the what. I'm just going to give you the facts here.
Yeah, the what is that, like, a lot of Americans believe in a lot of conspiracy. Like, that's what I learned. Like, even mass shootings, 40% of Americans believe the government's concealing what it knows about mass shootings. I just, like, we are very conspiratorially minded. And so the question is, like, what does religion have to do with that? And generally speaking, it does look in some instances that people who are more religious tend to be more conspiratorially minded. Okay. Like, the people who are the most likely to believe that the New World Order, the government's concealing what it knows, it's the highest among people who are very religious. JFK assassination is the highest among people who are very religious. But there are some where it's like a curvilinear relationship. It's actually people in the middle of the religiosity spectrum tend to be the ones who are the most conspiratorial minded. That's the most important finding, by the way. It's the least religious are the lowest conspiracy thinking. The most religious are lower. The people in the middle of the religiosity spectrum are the ones who tend to have higher conspiratorial beliefs.
So these are the quasi-religious. This is the I attend church on occasion. This is the I'm loosely connected person, and they tend to have more of a mindset towards conspiracy theories. I want to ask you why. Can I ask you to speculate? What you are a social scientist,
yes.
So these are things that you are allowed to speculate on. What is your speculation there?
By the way, it also shows up with attendance too. Like, the people who attend between like not never and not weekly are also the most conspiratorial mind. So it shows up in both religious importance and religious attendance, which means it's like, this is consistent, right? I think it's because if you're really religious, you've got a very defined worldview. Like, you've got a scaffolding, a mental understanding of the world around you, which makes a lot of sense. If you're non-religious, you also have a mental scaffolding, which is completely different than the other group, but still a consistent worldview of like, no, this is not how things work. It's the people in the middle who like dabble in things I think is the most important thing, where it's like where you just have enough of a religious worldview that you sort of believe in like a higher power and something at work behind the scenes, but not so much that it crowds out a possibility of a conspiracy. And by the way, most Americans are in the middle categories, right? They're not nevers and they're not weeklies. They're in the middle. And I just think a lot of Americans are sort of like they dip their toe in a lot of things. Like they dip their toe in religion and they dip their toe in conspiracy thinking. And I just think that's an interesting thing. Like you see this in a lot of data. It's like the monthly attenders are the weirdos. They tend to be like on different behaviors. They stand out from like weekly attenders or never attenders. There's something to be said about the middle of the spectrum that I don't really know why it is, but I see it consistently. The middle category.
Now, I noticed that in this data, and by the way, we put a link to the article in the show notes here because I pulled this data from one of the articles you wrote. I'm going to add two variables that were not measured, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and speculate that if you were to do a multinomial regression analysis, that the two driving factors of belief in conspiracy theories would be baby boomer and hours of YouTube watched.
Yeah.
Go generation, and how much you watch YouTube. And I'm going to speculate. My thesis is that if you are a baby boomer and if you watch many hours of YouTube, you are more prone to conspiracy theory.
So I think YouTube is actually like a conspiracy machine in my estimation.
It's glorious. It's glorious.
Is it? I love YouTube. Is it though? Like, here's what's crazy. My wife's uncle, who's the most non-technological guy ever, like still has a dumb phone, like a flip dumb phone, never been on the internet. I have to do all these things for him when I go to his house because he doesn't know how to do anything, like sign up for things. He'll watch YouTube on the TV all day long. And I'll go, like, what does it show you? And he goes, oh, like a little this, a little that. And it's like the next video is like the most conspiratorial video I've ever seen in my life.
Clickbait.
Clickbait. And the thing is, like, it sucks him in because the algorithm wants to give you more of what you like because it wants to keep you on the app. That's the goal of these apps, is to keep you there. And conspiracy videos, see, that's the thing about, like, back in the day, there were conspiracy videos back in the day, right? But it was
you had to work to get them, though. I mean,
you had to work. Exactly right. They were hard to find. Like, they were never like put them on broadcast TV. It was like, I found a video cassette at the back of the rental place. Like, they were not. Now it's like you can find 1,000 videos on JFK in 5 seconds on YouTube. And the more you see that, the more like plausibility kind of rises in your mind of like, maybe that really did happen. And I think that's like with these school shootings, like this false flag idea, right? That like all these like school shootings were like a government operation to institute gun control. Very few people actually believe that. But if you go online, you can find 1,000 people who do. And you're like, wait a minute, lots of people believe this, so I should too. So it creates that plausibility structure of like, oh, I'm not the only crazy one. When it used to be, yes, you were, because you found no other people actually believe the nutty things that you did. So I think that's part of it too, is the internet's made it 10 times worse because now you can find nutty people. And even though they're less than 1% of the population, you can find them all in one spot. So in your mind, you think they're a lot bigger. It's a much bigger movement than what you thought.
Okay. Fair point. I still enjoy watching YouTube. So for those of you who are baby boomers and you watch a lot of YouTube, I know I was poking fun, but I am among you. So I will lump myself in your category. It's the democratization of information, I think is like this wonderful idea in theory and a horrible idea in practice because there are no more filters in society. But I also realize that, sometimes those filters have been hijacked in ways that are also inappropriate. So media, music, now you can find anything and that's wonderful. But then the downside of that is you can find anything and everyone having a voice means that anything can rise to the top.
I think Monica Lewinsky said it best. I think everyone deserves a voice, but not everyone deserves a megaphone. And unfortunately, social media has given megaphones to guys like Alex Jones. Let's be honest.
I'm just shocked you quoted Monica Lewinsky.
You like that? That's good, huh?
That was a great reference. That was really good. And
see,
and frankly, I think there's some truth to what she's saying there.
She's not wrong. And let's be honest, gatekeepers are good. Like, we need some gatekeepers in this world. Like, they can definitely like slow the flow of information down they don't like, which is bad, but they also filter out a lot of the nonsense, which is good. The overall democratization of media flow in America, I think on balance has probably been bad. Like,
Yeah,
it
I would concede the point there. As much as I am a free market capitalist and I love just the freedom of everything being out there, we have lost something as a society. And I just relate it back to my church. If everyone had the Sunday morning voice that I have, and was able
yeah,
to communicate to the entire congregation in the way that I can, it would just be utter chaos. So there
yes,
is something to be said about gatekeepers, but there's also something to be said that many of those gatekeepers, the last 50 years or whatever it is, whatever your time frame is, have not done us well.
agreed. But the solution is not no gatekeepers. It's just better gatekeepers, I guess. And we've not figured that out. YouTube's like, nah, you all can watch whatever nonsense you want to watch and believe whatever you want to believe. Like, free speech has its limits. I think it has to.
Certainly it does. You can't say anything you want to say.
Well, I mean, social media companies have got basically like run on the premise that they can let people say whatever they want to say, though. Like, that's the problem.
Yeah, I know that from experience. This was a long time ago, but I can't get into details, but the FBI got involved and I was the target of some bad people who were saying some bad things about me, and making some awful terroristic threats via social media. And getting Twitter, it was Twitter back in the day, to do anything about it was very, very hard.
Because they don't want to. I mean, I got brigaded one time, like a very prominent, ideologically pure account basically pointed people to me, like, go yell at this guy. And they did. Like, I got 100. Actually, Twitter, the app, put up a notification saying, you're getting a lot of notifications. You want to turn them off for a while? And I was like, yes. Like, I don't want that. I don't need that in my life. Like, it's nonsense. But that's the funny thing is, like, we won't stop the speech, but we'll make sure you don't see it. Like, what kind of messed up world is that, right? Wouldn't it be better just to stop the speech to begin with? I don't know.
So let's talk about being politically conservative, because what you show in your data is that it
Yeah.
really doesn't have any impact on belief in conspiracy
Yeah,
theories.
that's the fascinating part. Like, I thought, like, because, okay, so we used to have this theory of public opinion that was like a line. There's the left and the right. The right's as far away from the left, and the left, you know what I mean? It's a straight line, right? But what we're beginning to understand is like some areas is like a horseshoe. Like, the ends are closer than you think they are. The example I was give is vaccines. Used to be back in the day, the anti-vax crowd was the far left crowd, the crunchy crowd, the granola crowd, right? Now the anti-vax crowd is both the granola crowd, but also the conspiracy crowd of, like, the vaccines cause arrhythmia and tachycardia and all that stuff, like the Trumper ivermectin thing, right? So maybe in conspiracies, a theory that I had was it's actually like a horseshoe. Like, the very left and the very, very far left, very far right are actually really conspiratorial minded. They're just conspiratorial minded in a different way. But the data doesn't show that. Actually, the most interesting variable, biblical literalism. That is
Okay.
one thing that people who believe the Bible to be literally true are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories than people who don't believe the Bible is literally true. And that's after controlling for things like education, age, income, all those other things. So that's an interesting finding, that biblical, it's not being a Christian or saying religion's important. It's that specific subset, which is saying the Bible is literally true, opens up the possibility of conspiratorial thinking.
Well, and maybe it's because I believe the Bible is literally true. And you have to define literal a little bit there, because parables are parables and poetry is poetry, right? And there's context involved too with it being literally true. But I'll just say I'm in that camp. I don't know that I'm any more prone to conspiracy theories, but if you have a high view of scripture, you're gonna believe in the doctrine of depravity in some way, shape, or form. I know there's
You
a
have
big
to.
debate as to what depravity is, but
Sure.
you're gonna hold to sin, the sin nature of humanity, and with that comes the ability to do things that you shouldn't do and wanting to cover it up. That's the whole I mean, that's the whole, in order to be forgiven, you have to uncover your sin, right? This is the problem of sin is, that desire to conceal it, the desire to cover it up. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to be forgiven, you have to uncover it, to be covered by the righteousness of God. So I don't know that it's that far of a leap for those of us who are kind of in my camp. Like, I certainly don't want to be a whack job, but hey, sin means we're going to want to, our desire, our natural inclination is to cover things up. Why wouldn't that be systemic
Mm-hmm.
in the government?
Mm.
Just saying that there are those like me who, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I want to be very clear, but who can see the way doctrinally that perhaps people would be prone to do
Yep.
this.
Yeah. And the framers agree with you, by the way. Like, the framers' conception of humanity is not good. Like, left to our own devices, we're selfish, we're arrogant, we're violent. Thomas Hobbes wrote a book called Leviathan. Oh, let's go down a little political science rabbit hole for a second. In Leviathan,
I know that book.
you know that book, right?
Yep.
And the most famous line is, "Life without government is nasty, poor, brutish, and short." Which he basically makes the argument, like, left to our own devices, we're going to kill each other. That's how it all shakes out. So we're inherently evil. So it's the government's job to constrain our evil nature, to make us less evil. We're not good. And I guess if you extrapolate that out to the world of conspiracy theories, it's like, no, we're all doing evil things. And we're trying to cover those things up, like what the government does with conspiracy theories. So you can kind of see how the doctrine of depravity does drive that idea. Like, it's not just the crime, it's the concealment that's 10 times worse, by the way. And I love
absolutely.
Human nature is hilarious because we see this in our history. Like with Bill Clinton, okay? Bill Clinton has an affair with Monica Lewinsky. Speaking of Monica Lewinsky, twice today. That's weird. But anyway, the worst part of that whole thing was he lied about it. If he would have just said, "Oh yeah, me and Monica messed around," that would have not been an impeachment trial. It would have been like, it would have been bad, but not as, it wouldn't become this whole long thing that it became because he lied about it. Richard Nixon, the cover up was the worst part of the whole thing. Like, I like how we've learned nothing. Well, David and Bathsheba, the cover up, you know what I mean? The killing of Uriah the Hittite. Like, we learn nothing. If you mess up, you're going to mess up because you're human and you're sinful. The cover up is going to make it 100 times worse. And maybe the government doesn't realize that. I don't know, but it does seem like they're. Listen, I'm willing to believe that the government's done some things that we don't know about and will never know about, and probably, honestly, shouldn't know about.
The same could be said of the church, though. That's my point. It's not just the government, but it is also any hall of power.
Yes.
Where that can occur. Now, this does lead into a rather interesting nuance of the research that you did, because Christian nationalistic views does drive up the belief in conspiracy theories. And when I saw that, I was like, well, I'm not surprised. But let's push into that just a little bit for a minute or two. Help me understand what is going on there, because there would be some who would have heard just what I said about depravity, government, Romans 13, and say, well, we need a prince at the top controlling this thing, a Christian prince that now is, that we do away with democracy and we bring in this person who's going to hold us all accountable, and we're going to all live under this Christian umbrella that is the United States of America. Why is that group more prone to conspiracy theories?
I think it's because they're anti-government. Like, Christian nationalists are not about big government at all, right? They think government's bad. It gets in the way, restrains your freedom. And if it's bad, it's probably bad because it's done stuff that it's not proud of. Like, government's inherently evil, I think, is a lot of Christian nationalists' idea. If you get government out of the way, truth and all these other things will come out. And so I do think that the link between Christian nationalism and conspiracy is actually really complicated, because, like, defining terms is really hard. Christian nationalism is a hard term to define. Conspiratorial thinking is a hard term to define. Like, for instance, I'll give you two for instances that just happened the last 5 years. The 2020 election. Was it stolen from Donald Trump? A certain subset of Americans would say yes, right? The far right MAGA Trumpers, probably a lot of Christian nationalists. By the way, the data says this. Christian nationalists are more likely to think the 2020 election was stolen. Now, an even more recent example is the fact that Joe Biden was probably mentally incompetent to be president his last year in office. A new book just came out last week that makes this point very plain. And the Democrats were covering that up.
Which was readily obvious to those who just watched TV. I'm just going to go. I don't necessarily like being political on this podcast, but let me just say, I feel for the guy. That it was not good. It was not good and obvious. It's that book will be a bestseller. I'm thinking I should have written that. I mean, anybody could have written that.
But it was over 200 interviews, a lot off the record because everyone's a coward in Washington, D.C. But I think they're both conspiratorial thinking, right? Like, and I think Christian nationalists actually would be more likely to believe in both, just to kind of give them, because like the election was stolen is definitely a Christian nationalist belief. And the idea that Biden's incompetent was also a Christian nationalist belief, right? But you on the left, you see like things like, oh, pharmaceutical companies, they have cures for cancer. They just don't want to roll them out because there's no money in that. Like you realize like how nutty that idea is. Like that's so incredibly like off the, just completely bizarre. But I do think there's something about Christian nationalism in the recent era. And I think Donald Trump has done nothing to tamp this down, by the way. He actually, in some ways, has poured more fuel on the fire of all. Like, whenever I get elected, I'll tell you about Area 51, or I'll open the Epstein files or the JFK files. Like, he leans into this stuff. And I think his supporters love that about him, that he doesn't shy away from conspiratorial thinking.
I like that about him. I'll just be real. I think that's, but coming from a different perspective, I'm certainly no Christian nationalist. I want to be very clear about that. But I just think it's fun. I enjoy the troll just a little bit, but I would enjoy that from anybody. That's not just because it's Donald Trump. I just think those things are kind of funny that he rolls out there just to see what kind of reaction he gets.
My favorite Facebook event ever was there was going to be a thing where like 1 million people are going to go to Area 51 and just breach the fence all at one time to get in. And the tagline was, they can't kill all of us.
That's true, but we are not condoning such behavior here on Rainer on Leadership.
No. And by the way, that like whoever it was, the Department of Defense is like, please don't do this. Like, this is a huge mistake.
Yeah, it would be. But all right, so we're up against time today. This has actually been a fun discussion and one that took several rabbit holes, just like the ones you go down on YouTube. So last question for you, Ryan. Is there any conspiracy theory out there that you think might have any validity whatsoever, Mr. Skeptic?
I've got one.
All right.
Michael Jordan was going to get suspended from the NBA for a year because of his gambling problem. So the baseball thing was actually not, I don't care what anyone says. Dude was at the top of his career and quit basketball to go be a mediocre AA baseball player for a year. No, thank you. David Stern went to him and said, you either got to leave or we're going to kick you out. And guess what? He had a great cover. His dad just died. He always loved baseball. He had good relationships with Chicago and the White Sox. So bing, bang, boom, Bob's your uncle. Great cover story.
Okay. I will entertain that one. I don't know that I agree, but I think there's a higher chance that the CIA was involved in JFK's assassination than that one being true.
Really?
Yeah, I really do.
Do you really believe that? Like, I just don't like. Why did the CIA care about killing JFK?
Oh, watch some YouTube videos. I'll tell you.
No, thank you.
Sports now. Before all of you people who think sports are this pure thing, it's big business. So yes. Of course, there could be some things going on there. I've heard that one, but it's not one that I would have pegged you to think that there may be some validity to.
Oh, so. Also the fact that Mavericks got the first pick in the NBA draft after trading Luka.
Let's just say that the NBA, in my opinion, is completely unwatchable at this point and looks scripted and just is that a travel? The guy took 6 steps. I can't figure it out. So But that's
officiating
me.
is opinion in the NBA now. Like it's not there's no black and white on what a foul is or a travel. It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, I love basketball, but I'm that curmudgeon saying, get off my lawn. I want to go back to the 1990s, um, which is gone. It's forever gone. It's like, that was 30 years ago, Sam. I hear you.
It was.
Hey, speaking of sports, we've got a really good sponsor that I want to tell you about, Upward Sports. It's like the best of the best when it comes to using sports in order to reach your community. And guess what? No conspiracies in pickleball. There are no conspiracies in pickleball. And they have a new pickleball program. It's a blast. It's so much fun. And they're going to give 2 free pickleball net sets to a church. So there's only 200 sets available. So schedule a call and, talk to them about these free pickleball net sets. The way that you can do that is at upward.org/pickleball. Again, upward.org/pickleball. They will help you become a neighborhood church where you can reach your neighbors. We certainly appreciate Upward. We want you to be a church that does outreach and does it well. And this is your bridge to the community. They've got all sorts of programs, but we're just talking about pickleball right now. But if you've got other sports that you think would be a match for your church, I'm sure they have it. So, but you need to start with pickleball. Let's go to upward.org/pickleball. Thank you all for tuning in today. Hey, write a comment. If you're on YouTube, write a comment about some conspiracy theories and what you think. We talked about it, so why don't you talk about it as well? Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.